steel-hilted smallsword, without a doubt, is the most modern of all of Washington's swords. In fact, up until recently, we thought it was something that he acquired around the time of his first inauguration in the late 1780s, because stylistically, most students of edged weapons would have put this towards the tail end of the 18th century. Recently, we found out that this was in Washington's hands, God knows how, as early as the fall of 1779. But when Washington acquires it at the height of the Revolution, perhaps it was captured in a prize vessel, we're not sure. When he acquires the sword, he's not really happy with it. He doesn't like the blade on it. Typically, these come with very narrow, insignificant blades. Washington wasn't going to have any of that. So he sends two swords, including the steel-hilted smallsword, to his favorite cutler, John Bailey, and says, "Can you swap the blades between the two? But at the same time, what I want you to do is take the tang of the blade, the part of the blade that passes through the sword hilt that forms the rivet that holds it all together." He says, "I want you to redden the tang of the blade with sealing wax, because the grip is hollow, it's got open work, and you can see that red coming through and being reflected in the polished steel surfaces." So it would have been a really amazing looking thing, and Washington directs this to happen. I mean, you couldn't ask for anything crazier than that, but he did it. He was a very particular man. He was obviously in love with this sword. This was the latest fashion, and this is the sword that was described as being on his hip in 1795 while he was president. Certainly the most modern. It has an incredibly interesting story after Washington's death. It's the first sword chosen by the nephews. It descends to Lewis William Washington, who has the sword in the 1850s, when both Lewis William Washington and the sword are literally kidnapped or stolen by an agent acting on behalf of none other than John Brown, the noted abolitionist. Brown, who is about to launch his raid on Harper's Ferry in hopes of capturing the armory and the arsenal there, he's going to arm every slave he can find, have an uprising, and put an end to the slavery issue in the United States. Very, very noble idea, but he thought he needed more than that. He needed the spirit of Washington, and by acquiring Washington's sword, which he wore on his hip, he thought he was going to be victorious. It didn't work out so well. John Brown was eventually hung at the gallows. Same with John Cook, his agent, who took Lewis William Washington hostage and stole the sword. Washington did get his sword back, and it was an unhappy ending for John Brown's party, that's for sure. But that sword was there. If there is one event that affected how the Washingtons treated George Washington's swords going through time, it'd have to be the Civil War. The Washington family largely sided with the Confederacy, and after the war, many of the members of the family were financially ruined. When you need money and you have something as valuable and important as one of Washington's swords, sometimes you have to sell it. And Lewis William Washington, rather than passing this sword down to his son James Barrow Washington, ended up offering the sword, some very important papers, and a gold seal, some surveying instruments, for sale to the people of the United States. Congress neglected to come up with the money to buy it, and the state of New York came up with the money. So all of these things in 1871 make it to the state of New York and become property of the people of New York State. All's well and good till 1911. The papers are locked away in a safe. New York State Capitol building is billed as a fireproof granite sort of building, and it largely was. The building was fireproof. The problem is it was filled with wooden shelves, wooden everything, and it burned in 1911. And Washington's sword was almost destroyed. Pretty much, it was ruined. It was bent like a pretzel, and it was actually thrown into a garbage heap until a workman overheard a number of other folks talking about, where is Washington's sword? Where did it go? He remembered that the previous day he had come across this oddly shaped piece of metal. He threw it on a rubbish heap and realized, oh my God, that's Washington's sword. So he went and retrieved it. The sword was saved, but it was ruined. It was bent like a pretzel. It stayed that way in a vault in the library until the eve of World War II, when they had an Irish superintendent working there who was trained as a metalsmith. and he actually got permission to set the sword straight. And he did a beautiful job, and the sword looks like a sword again. It's not bent up like a pretzel, but it does show the effects of the fire. The scabbard that came with it is gone. Most of the mounts are gone. The chain with the sword hanger, the suspension device that held it off of Washington's belt, is largely gone. And the hilt, instead of being bright and shiny as it would have been in Washington's day, is now covered in a blackish heat scale. But it still exists, and it's got a great story.